This is Resident Evil 2 2019, the remake. So starting with looking around, mouse sensitivity is 1:1 with the mouse. When I stop moving, the camera stops. There's no drifting or easing on the look, which is kind of fairly typical. I can turn 360 around the character, look up, look down. One of the things we should probably observe here is the character's movement. So as I turn right, you'll see her head is turning kind of in the direction to a certain extent, and then you'll see she flips. So it's actually kind of attempting to follow where the mouse is looking. Although you'll see the shoulders and gun do not turn at all, just the head. Looking at movement, moving forwards, the camera, you can see here as it moves, there's a little bit of a drift. So it'll kind of pull to a certain extent and then pull in. So there must be sort of a position for stationary and a position for moving, and it's attempting to kind of ease between those two. Moving left, so this is sort of a strafe, and she'll move left of center there. You'll see that. Same with right, moving left of center. Well, not center, sorry, should I say the offset that the camera already has. And you'll see the camera drifts a bit too there. You can see it as I stop. It's got a bit of a slow drag there. Moving backwards. Let's find some room here actually. Moving backwards. You'll see it drifts into the camera a little bit. Something else is interesting here. If I look in a direction and push Alt, the camera will reset in the direction she's looking. Now running, I'm going to hold down Shift while moving. So what the first thing to notice is, I should point out from the camera from before, if I turn 360 degrees and push forward, she will move to rotate towards the camera. Also interesting, if I stop halfway, she's still halfway, and will continue as I move. So if I go 360, turn halfway, and Alt, I'll look in her direction. So you can see that she's sort of done half a turn. Running, holding down Shift. I'll just do that here in a bit of a longer area. I'll try it here actually in this corridor where there's a bit more room for the camera to fit. Okay, so we're going to run, and I think we'll see the camera drag a little bit behind. Yeah, so we can see the back of her knees there, and then as we stop, it pulls in to kind of the belt. I'm going to do the same in this direction. So we can see the belt, start running, and we can pull back to the knees, and then there is a drift on that, so the camera kind of drags a little bit. Running left and right, so when we're walking we see a strafe like this. When we're running, her shoulders and hips will turn to face the direction she's running, but that is not the same with strafing. You can see when I'm strafing slow walk, her hips and shoulders are facing the direction. Running backwards is interesting, she actually turns to face the camera, whereas walking backwards she will step backwards. So I guess the rule you can kind of see here is that the character is, when running, shoulders and hips are facing the direction she's moving rather than attempting to kind of have a target on, I guess, on the front, so where the camera is. So to show that again, walking sideways, running sideways, character twists. Sneaking. There's less of a sneak in this game, it's sort of just a slow walk. Yeah, on a controller you can obviously move at a slower pace, but I don't think it's anything other than just walking a little bit slower. Okay, so shooting. Let's look at shooting from the hip. So the first thing I'm going to do is just fire from the hip here. And when I click, nothing happens actually. I have to aim to shoot in this game, so there is no hip fire at all. There's no point fire, no hip fire. As soon as I'm clicking, nothing is happening until I aim, so that's worth acknowledging. Okay, so I guess shooting from a 360, what we can check here is as the camera turns, what we'll see is I'm going to aim, and we will see the character. She will turn and level her weapon, and the cursor pulls in. So just to show that with a shot, she will not shoot until the weapon's leveled. So I'm going to aim for that blue thing at the end of the corridor, right there, and she won't be able to shoot. I'm going to click as quick as I can, and she won't be able to shoot until the level's weapon. Till the weapon is leveled. Same in this direction. I'm going to right click and then shoot. And yeah, I can't click as quick as she turns. Or sorry, I can click quicker than she's ready to shoot. So I'm going to do it again. What I'm going to do is right click and then quickly click left. And she won't shoot. So that's interesting, that she will not shoot until the weapon is at a leveled position like that. So anywhere between that lower transition to the level doesn't shoot. So I'm trying to shoot now, and yeah, there's a gap between when she can shoot. I'm just going to check while I'm at it. Let's see what the weapon. You can see she drifts. So my mouse moves and the gun follows. I'm super curious to see whether the bullet is traveling from the muzzle, and so I'm going to try and click mid-stream, like mid-movement there, and see if she shoots at something in the middle. So again, I'm going to kind of try and stop the mouse somewhere around here, but shoot in the middle of that. Just reload in there, I guess. Okay. It looks to me, it's hard to say, but it looks to me like it's always coming from the cursor. So one way to look at that would be to come in here and we'll find an angle where her gun would be covered by, yeah, there we go, that's something, where her gun is covered by an object. We'll find a better one, I think. Hang on. Where can we go that is going to help us here? Need her gun to be covered. Yeah, so she would be probably shooting this wall or column, but it looks to be that the it seems to always hit where the camera is pointed, rather than coming from her muzzle. So I would have to assume that she would be shooting that pillar at this stage based on this angle. So something interesting to acknowledge. I'm just going to go into like a smaller area just to see what the camera does in tight areas. So we're kind of at the belt height here. If you look at the lower part of the screen, we're at her belt. I'm going to pull in. And it seems to be in the same position. I'm just going to swing the camera around her against some walls and things just to see what it does. So it's quite happy to pull in right close to her her head there. I'm just going to back it up right up here and see what happens as I pull in. Yeah, so it's right around her head. She doesn't disappear. There's no I guess Z clipping around her head or any sort of clipping at all of the view. The last thing I want to check is just around a pillar or something small. Quite often the camera could, realistically, this lamp is not going to block our view of the character, so we could go around it, but as I swing in, it'll pull in, so it looks to me like nothing gets between. Oh, what was that? That's interesting. I can just go behind it. I'm imagining that's the center of my camera getting, it's hard to say where the middle of that is. I can just get behind it, but if I get a little lower, it clips past. Could just be the clipping on that object, it's hard to say. But yeah, basically as I move forwards, it'll snap close. This is Ghost Recon Wildlands 2017. So I guess we'll start with looking around. The camera panning over the right shoulder there with one-to-one movement with my mouse. So there's no drag or easing. So as soon as I stop the mouse, we stop. There's no drifting. Can turn all the way around. It looks to me like he is he attempting to follow the mouse? I think he's a little bit. His head is turning. Yes, it is. His head is turning. You can see it when I look down and up. His head is turning to follow the mouse there. I'm going to walk forwards. Interestingly here, there's no delay with the camera. It moves when he moves. There's no drag or easing on the camera. We can see it's kind of just below his bag there, and as we move it's still pretty much just below his bag. There doesn't appear to be any drift or field of view change when that movement happens. Let's walk backwards and see. Yeah, same deal. It matches the movement exactly. Just going to look at strafing here. I'm going to move left. He is strafing. You notice his shoulders and hips don't rotate to follow the direction we're moving, and same with backwards there. Just going to run. There is sort of a camera change here as I run. We're getting a little bit of a field of view change that seems to zoom in a little bit, and I think it's even lowering if we look at where it is. Like at the moment it's sort of over his shoulder. We're getting just down below his shoulder, and we'll see that drift as I stop.
We got hostiles in the area. Hey, we got a narco. There, by the ruins.
I thought he might have been talking about that dog for a minute there. So as I run and stop, we get that little drift back to the original position. Something that's interesting in this game, obviously strafe left and right. If I run left, what we're going to see is he actually doesn't run left, he'll run diagonally left. So I'm holding down shift and pushing left. That's not holding the forward key at all, so I'll do that right, shift and right. I'm not holding forwards at all, and he's actually running in a diagonal direction, which is a little strange. As I turn, he's still following that kind of arc, but yeah, there's no running left or right in this. I'm going to switch to kind of more of a sneaking stance and just see what the camera does. It's sort of still maintaining that same height. There seems to be a little bit of bounce almost there actually. That's kind of interesting. It's like a camera jiggle, just a little when it lands. Moving from there, he's crouched. Something I guess to point out when we're turning, I forgot to mention that earlier, he will, from 360 will turn to face the camera direction, and if I stop halfway, stops halfway. So he will stop when the mouse stops. The movement stops. Sneaking, the camera is in the same position. There's no drifting behind or drifting forwards. It's always kind of at the same distance from our character. So now we're going to shoot. So shooting from the hip in this game, what I'm going to do is I'll actually do a 360 shot here. So I'm ready. I'm going to click. And what we see is he will instantly flip around. It's kind of an interesting thing here in this game is that he will instantly turn 360 degrees and then raise his gun up. You'll see him level his gun and then it will fire. So I'm going to click once and all of that will happen before I've even clicked. So should I say I'll click, he'll then turn around instantly, level his gun and then fire when my mouse is pointed. So there is a delay on my firing. So I click now and it won't fire until that weapon is leveled. Just out of curiosity, what I'm going to do is move the cursor and click just to see where the bullet lands. It's quite hard to do actually, moving the mouse and clicking without it sort of delay there, but what I think is happening is that he's leveling and firing where I clicked. So that's kind of interesting. So the bullet will go where the mouse is pointed, but he'll wait until like the gun is fully leveled. There's no like accidentally shooting kind of off on a different angle. I'm going to aim down sights in this, so that's right click, and we'll see this game does a slight zoom in. It actually looks like it's using the same level as an animation as when I left click and do a regular hip fire. So regular hip fire, and now I'm going to just cancel that zoom and you'll see he does the same lift. So what happens is we zoom in and then we switch to a first person view. Like that. Same deal, if I turn 360, I'm going to right click to zoom in. And he instantly, I might have to hide here actually, sorry, there's a helicopter. So what we're going to do is turn 360 and right click. You'll notice he will snap 360 degrees and go into that zoom animation. I imagine this is set up with two cameras, so there's the over shoulder camera, and as it pulls in, it gets to a point where it transitions to the first-person camera. The other thing I'm going to look at is the kind of the bullet line, where the bullet's traveling. So as the player, I can see that wall, but I don't imagine he can. From if you look at his angle, I don't think he can see this piece of brick wall here. But when he shoots, okay, we are hitting. So the bullet is probably coming from the muzzle rather than from the camera, which is interesting. And we can see that here actually when I zoom into first person. He's looking down the muzzle and not where my third person camera was. Something else, I guess, while we're inside, let's look where the camera moves. So we're just below the bag. Come inside and see what happens. As we pull in around a wall or something, the camera is going to slide up. Oh, that's interesting. He's turning on his own here, which he wasn't doing outside. Let's just see if we can understand what's happening here. So when I turn around, he's turning 360. Sorry, the camera is moving 360. He doesn't turn until I push forward. It's quite a long turn, actually. Then when I'm inside, up against a wall, if I turn that direction... Oh, that's very interesting. He'll automatically turn. I wonder if that's based on the height? I'm just going to try and find out why that's happening. See if we can work that out.
But now that he's gone, the farmers in Okor are taking back control of the cane production.
Up against this wall.
Small, but they'll get back on their feet.
And yeah, so it's interesting. It slides against the wall. We will clip eventually into him and he just vanishes, as opposed to it clipping him or going above him or around him or anything. And he doesn't... Oh yeah, he's turning there. So he's not doing it there. Maybe it's the distance that his weapon is from the wall. I'm just going to try that inside. Try it here. Distance the weapon is. So we're... okay, that's interesting. I think it might be on his gun side. The camera will turn. Gun side. Now this is left, and we get full 360. Yeah, I don't know, that's quite difficult to interpret, but yeah, sliding up against the wall until we get to a point where he clips. And now, okay, last small things. Does the camera go around a small thing like this pillar? And it looks to me like it zooms in. So it's going to pull in and out. Pull in and out, so it's not going to go around that object. In this game there is also a shoulder change, so we'll push the middle mouse button and we switch side. I'm just going to see what happens when I shoot from this side. Okay, so there's an animation for levering the weapon, and it's a different animation. He's shouldered on the left but is still firing. I don't think he's switching hands here. Let me see here. That's change of shoulder. No, yeah, he's not changing hands, but he's shouldering it differently. This is the Division 2016. So let's have a look. So as I move the camera around, we have again 1-to-1 ratio with the mouse. When I stop, there is no drifting. The camera doesn't like ease or kind of slide into where he's looking. Let's see what the character's doing as I move. He is turning his head to kind of look, obviously when he's not doing idle animations. So yeah, his character's turning. It looks like the gun even moves just a little bit, but not too much. 360 doesn't obviously turn around. Yep, there's no 360 turning there or anything like that. And you can see he looks up and down. So yeah, he's slightly moving with the camera. We're going to do some walking, so as we walk forwards you'll see he will turn in the direction that the camera is pointed, so I'm going to tap forwards. In this case, unlike some of the other ones I'm looking at, he'll do a full 360 on one tap. He doesn't stop halfway, so I don't do a slight tap and him pause halfway through that turn. He will do a full turn. I don't know what just happened there actually, that one's really weird. Alright, let's left and right. We are it looks to me as I move left and right, he's shifting his whole hips and shoulders. He's obviously keeping his head where he was looking, just like he does when he's stationary, but he's actually walking left and right. He's not strafing left and right. And let's go backwards. Same deal. Let's look at the camera for a second. As I walk, the camera seems to drift just a small amount. There's a slight... When I stop, you'll see it'll do a little ease here. There we go. There's a little ease. It's hard to tell if that's the character stopping his walking cycle, or if that's the camera with a bit of drift as well. I'm not 100% sure on that one. It does seem like the camera's drifting a little, actually. No, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I think it's actually based on the character's animation stopping. Running. As I run, we get a slight field of view shift, and it looks like the camera lowers, so we'll do that again. I'm going to run forwards. We're going to see it move from... It's roughly pivoting around his head at the moment. We're going to see it move down towards his shoulders as I run. So I'm walking, running. There's a slight field of view and a slight shift. And then when I stop, we see it, it'll ease back to its original position, like that. I'm going to run left and right just to see what that does. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down right, like that, and then I'm going to push shift to run. What we see is the camera is actually turned. That's the first time in this game I've seen the camera get kind of taken over like that, so I'll just do it again. All I'm going to do, I'm not going to move my mouse, I'm going to hold down left and then push shift, and you'll see that the camera will turn to face the direction he is running. Shift, there you go. It's kind of interesting actually. That means, like, can I run left? No, you're only running in the direction your mouse is looking, really, and I guess it's just aligning the mouse to go in the same direction as him. Sneaking. There isn't so much a crouch in this game. This uses like a cover system where we're like pivoting still around the character. But what I'll do is I'll switch to a walk stance. On backspace, I think. Yep. Walking. I don't see... There does seem to be a little bit of camera drift on that one. It's quite slow.
Because of this kind of shit.
Alright, leave me alone, buddy. Yeah, there's a camera drift. You can see it. If you look particularly far down that road, you'll see more of the parallax as the camera shifts. So we'll just move like that and you'll see it. Yeah, there's a bit of a camera ease. You can definitely see it in the long distance parallax. Okay, so shooting from the hip, we'll start with that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to click once and see what the character does. There is a delay, so he raises his weapon and will shoot. Looks like it actually shoots quite high. I'm just going to kind of try and get the mouse on that tire. Yeah, it's very high. That's very strange. So yeah, when I click, he raises the weapon and will fire wherever it's pointed. I'm going to do a 360 click and just see what that does. So in this case we're getting an instant turn. The character is turning instantly, raising the weapon and then firing. And the camera is panning in a little bit. So this is an aim down sight in this game. We'll see the camera is pulling in towards the head and elbow. And when it's a level shot, it pulls in just a bit and then returns to its original position. I'm going to reload and then hold this weapon down just to see what that camera does. I'll try an automatic weapon. That's quite hard to articulate. I think what's happening here is that the camera is pulling in to align with the weapon, and then the weapon is recoiling rather than it aligning with my mouse, and then what I'm doing is I'm pulling the weapon down. Interesting though. So that's hip firing. Let's do aim down sight. So I'll turn 360 and aim, and what we'll see is he will instantly flash immediately 360 degrees, and we'll get like a zoom in on the camera. Quite a nice camera angle actually. I like this angle. Slightly off center, but right near the elbows. It's quite cool. Next we're going to look at line of sight and where the bullet lands. So, like in the other demonstrations, we're going to just try and get to the corner of an object here and see what we can shoot at. Might need something more obvious. Okay, so he's looking at this tree, but I'm going to shoot the bus. Okay, it looks to me like he's shooting through that object. Just bring the muzzle right up. Actually, we can see the IK inverse kinetics pushing the gun backwards a little bit so he's not clipping that tree. And that's interesting, that actually does shoot the tree. Just gonna pull back. And it no longer shoots it. This game does have an aim down sights as well when you push tab while aiming, so what I'm going to do is the same trick here on the tree and just see what he's looking at. Well, it's hard to say actually. This is I'll just get close enough that we'll aim at the bus. Oh, okay, here we go. That's actually interesting. We can see it in the reticle. The middle reticle will move. So there you go. You can see what he's about to shoot, which is the tree. And then when I'm looking at the bus, if I pull a bit further right, you can see that middle reticle will switch position. So I guess that's an interesting little mechanic I'd never noticed before, is it'll show you where the actual gun is pointed when I'm quite close to an object. So there I'm shooting the bus, and if I move him further left, there we go, there, he's shooting the tree. Very interesting. Lastly, let's go inside and we'll do some movement around some objects. So we are kind of zoomed in around the back of his knees here at the moment. And as we go inside, this close quarter is around his hips. Something I can't quite work out is whether it's just because I'm outside or whether there's because there's an object overhead. I haven't found a way to kind of demo that. As I move the camera up against a wall, in this game it pivots up. It doesn't clip his character, it doesn't zoom right into his head or anything, it pivots above him and then down the other side. So it won't ever get too close. That's interesting. So if I right click while I'm up high, we do clip into him. So we're not doing the over shoulder like that. If I walk backwards here, we just hide him. It's interesting to see as I pull up whether or not that would hit the ceiling, or whether the ceilings are all designed by design to high enough that it won't clip. But yeah, it seems to me that if you're in a position where you're going to clip, we're just going to hide the character. Lastly, thin objects. So let's take something like that tree is probably a bit thick. Let's go to up here. I'll just look at this street sign here, and I'm going to pivot the camera around it.
This town is our playground, Jeremy.
Yeah, as we can see, the camera is pulling in towards the player and then back out, so it won't let us go around that pole at all. Try that here. This is Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC in 2019, and we're going to just look at some of these movements here. So let's turn left. He's very clearly turning his head to follow the cursor, and we're getting kind of, there's a dot in the middle of the screen, that's worth pointing out, and we're getting a 1-to-1. There's a bit of drag on his head, but the camera itself has got 1-to-1, no drag or easing or sliding with the cursor. It's pretty snappy. His head is got a delay on it. It's not quite as snappy. It's got ease on it. We can turn 360. Let's see what that does. He's leaning his shoulders around as well. The 3D animation there is turning his shoulders around. I'm just going to turn 360 here to see what he does, and he turns in the opposite direction, so he's got kind of a blind spot, I guess, that doesn't do anything. We're going to walk around, so let's just look. The camera's kind of down about his knees and calf, and as I walk forwards, He moves, there's actually a movement there where he moves before the camera does, and it pulls back to sort of a bit further back and drifts in. This camera's very spongy actually. It allows you to kind of move around and then it'll drift. So I'm just going to move left and right here, and the camera slides. You see it even pull back quite a lot when he starts walking. And when he's stationary, it doesn't seem to try and reset all that much back to his stationary position. So now what we're going to do is just look at left and right. As I move right, his head is looking, just like when we're stationary, his head is looking at where I am, but his hips turn and his shoulder turns, so he's not necessarily strafing there. Walking backwards, he moves towards the camera, so he isn't, he's turning to face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn the mouse, I'm going to push forwards, he turns. I'm going to see if I can do that halfway. So he does a full turn on a single tap. Quickly tap, full turn, he doesn't stop halfway. And when I walk backwards, he is turning to move towards the camera. His hips and shoulders actually face the camera, which is kind of interesting. It actually feels a little bit sluggish, to be frank. What I'm going to do is a little bit of a run, so we're going to hold down shift and run, and watch the camera drift a bit more. Actually, let's see. So here's a walk. We're looking at his feet there, and as we run, actually seems to maintain the same position, although it does feel like it maybe drifts a little bit into that final resting place. I can't tell if that's his animation stopping or the camera stopping. I think it might be a bit of both. The camera seems to be gliding a bit, particularly if you look in the long distance, you'll see it. There's a little bit of parallax there maybe, so I think we are seeing it slightly ease. It's not quite so robust. Although that could be based on his movement. I'll just do a sneak, so I'm going to crouch. The camera pulls in for this crouch. You can see that pretty clearly. It's going to pull in and down. Walking forwards, right, left. Quite a slow character movement actually, just turns full 360, walking back towards the camera. Now we'll go into a pull back. Yeah, so the camera is drifting quite nicely, very soft. I'm just going to look at hip firing, so I'm just going to shoot from the hip here. And like some of the other games we're looking at, what I'm going to do is click, and what we'll see is that the weapon will raise up and not fire until the gun is level. So I'll try and speak when I say click. So there is a delay. He raises the weapon. I'm going to try, like I have in other examples, try and move the mouse and just see if the click is taking place if he's raising the weapon to where I clicked it, or if he's continuing to follow the mouse. So there's like a slow drift past this snow field. I'm going to try and click in the middle, and we'll see where the weapon fires. Seems to me I kind of clicked on the left, the right. That last one I clicked on the right side of the rock, but he shot somewhere around here. So I think what it's doing is where the gun is pointed, as opposed to where I clicked. I'm going to do an aim in this case, so we'll aim down sights. The camera doesn't move much at all. Let's just try that again. So a hip fire. And a aim. Let's see what it's doing, because it's not changing the camera position at all. What's it doing when he turns? If I don't do that, we are turning his head, and when I aim, we're turning his shoulders and body. So that's interesting to point out. When I'm not aiming, or when we turn around, His hips and shoulders don't move at all, just his head. And when I am aiming, his whole torso will do. In fact, he'll even move his feet to point in the direction I'm shooting, which I imagine aids in this sort of strafing. Yes, so there I'm strafing now when I'm pointing. I'm going to look at where the bullet's hitting. It's going to be interesting to try and do outdoors. We'll see if we can find a tree to shoot through. Okay, so it's clearly not coming from the camera, that is clearly coming from the muzzle towards where the camera's pointing. I'm just going to try and get inside, or see what happens when we are up against objects. So as we pull in, what are we doing? We're going to slide up and around, similar to I think Resident Evil in this case, so it's going to pull right in close. We're not going to get any clipping. I will go inside, we'll just see what the camera does inside. So where are we? We're looking at his...
to death up here, Mr. Morgan.
Looking at the back of his feet. We're going to go inside. I think it's pulled in a little bit, but I think that's just to compensate for the amount of room that there is.
I'm serious, this is bad.
Yeah, I don't seem to see much change here. While we're here, we may as well see what the camera's doing around this pole, which is... It's interesting that it... Yeah, it must be focusing somewhere around his head, because as you can see, I can get it quite low, and then it will snap to try and not go around the pole. So the watching this pole on our left here, I'm going to go over it, and then low, and as I get lower around his chin or shoulder, we see it kind of try and pull towards him. So it won't go around objects. Interesting there that it clips through doors. Camera must be allowed to clip. Or is it quickly doing a zoom? I think it's quickly changing. Basically, as I rotate towards the camera, it pulls towards him, and it's just quickly trying to compensate for that as this door closes. Yeah, because it has to pull forwards. This is Elden Ring 2022 on PC, so I'm just going to have a bit of a look at the controller here. It's obviously very different to some of the other ones we're looking at, but it's still worth maybe having a look at how it does its shooting mechanics and how the camera moves. One thing to note as I rotate around, the character doesn't move their head at all. We're just rotating the camera. They don't look or move at all. They're just stationary. There is direct one-to-one with the mouse, which is kind of common in all of these. No delay or drag or anything. One thing we do notice though is as I walk, there is quite a substantial drifting of the camera. It'll drag forwards and then come to a stationary halt. So it's sort of got a different distance when you're walking, which is interesting to see there. The other thing is as I move left, you'll see that the player does not strafe, they just turn left and they turn right. The whole hips and shoulders turn to face the direction that I've asked it to go, and this is the same with backwards. There's no backwards walking, we actually just turn towards the camera. I'm going to rotate the camera and push forwards. The player will turn, will turn to face the direction that the camera is facing. Just, okay, so this is crouching. You can see here that the character crouches. We don't get any zoom inside or outside of that. It's just from the same angle and same speed of zooming with the character there, so it doesn't drift around much at all. I'm going to try and work out some shooting mechanics on this. It's interesting, there is sort of a side strafe, but then if I push backwards, instead of moving backwards like one of the other games, the character will turn to face the camera, so it's kind of clunky. Yeah, and when I'm turning left and right, he's not even firing in the direction that the mouse is pointed. So the character turns, I release the mouse, he's shooting at something I don't even know, so it's kind of quite a strange mechanic. This game has an auto-locking, like I can lock on a target, and I think it's probably more designed around that sort of mechanic than it is this mouse input, really. Kind of, if you think of Zelda 64 or Ocarina of Time, that camera locking on a target is more what this game's designed for. I'm just going to see what the bullet line does anyway, while we're at it. It seems to be, without a middle cursor to look at, it seems to be that it's firing where it was intended to fire, along the line from the bow there, but not at the cursor point. Lastly, I'm just going to go inside and look at how the kind of camera behaves inside, so around things. We are pulling up against walls. We can pull right in towards the character. It won't clip or make the character vanish. And I'm just going to try and go around something subtle. Let's have a look. Try one of these poles here while I'm at it. So I'll just pull the camera to the right of it. And we'll see it very quickly snaps right in towards the player. There's even very little drift. It's not going to go around things. I'll just try these chains here. They clearly don't clip, so that's interesting. I don't think they clip the player either, so there's probably not a... Do they? They do clip the player. I was going to suggest that they didn't clip at all, but it looks to me like there must be a way to set up things that don't clip the camera, which is quite interesting. Oh yeah, here we go. There's a perfect example of it. Something there that is not clipping the character, the camera. So camera will break line of sight on that pole, but not this one. And I imagine that's got something to do with this elevator needing to drag the camera around without it snapping too vigorously. I mean, I suppose in something like this you wouldn't want the camera bouncing in and out all over the place, so you probably want certain items to not affect the camera at all. I'm just going to back up and look at that again. See a little bit of camera bouncing there. Interesting, just worth looking at, just another game. And I don't think there's much else on the list here of things I want to kind of check out on this.